I claim inspiration for that costume because he said to me, John, that he wanted something that was younger and yet eccentric. And I thought, you can't get much more eccentric than cricket. So I just thought that was a perfect thing. And I love cricket. I still play cricket. I even got to play it in the programme. You know, I was out of work, and you were on sort of national assistance. You know, we get a little money from the government in the UK, and eventually they get tired of you getting money from them, and they say, go get a job. So I got this job in the income tax office, and because you were meant to have several exams to do the job that I was doing, but it was only a casual job, so I just lied about the exams I had.
As you do, yeah.
As you do. You just sort of say, yeah, I've got...
Janet was telling you she lied to get the role.
Yeah, oh no, yeah, we lie about everything. I was always told you can lie about everything except being able to ride a horse.
Ah, that's true.
Don't
you can't
do that
fake
because
it.
it's dangerous, isn't it? Yeah. So anyway, so I lied about the exams. I got a job in the income tax office, and I was quite good at it. And then they said to me one day, why don't you actually become a permanent member of the tax office, and you can make your way up to tax inspector. And that appealed to me because we had lots of actors living in the area, and I knew exactly how much they earned.
You knew what to demand and who you can undercut. And yeah.
So anyway, I thought, well, why not? I'll do that, become permanent, and work my way up, and I could always go back to acting later. Anyway, I filled in the form, and on the form it said, how many exams do you have, and produce the certificates. And of course I'd lied, so I had to go back in the next day. So I've changed my mind, I really want to be an actor. And then miraculously I got sent for a job. I had an audition about 3 weeks later. Yeah, and that was actually not for All Creatures, that was for a series called Love for Lydia, which I thought was going to be my big break. And it was, I worked for about a year on that, making the series. Mm-hmm. And then just before I finished, I went up for another job, which I thought, I was so convinced that A Love for Lydia would be my break, that I barely considered this other part of All Creatures. Yeah, I was a space cowboy. A very brief little part. I knew that was not going to be my break, so I glossed over that because the opening shot was me in a blonde curly wig and spandex sort of trunks or something. I don't know what the hell I was wearing. Not very much.
Stephen's looking for it, I'm sure.
And it was very, very embarrassing. You haven't got a picture.
Oh yeah. That's where it all started, yeah.
Yeah. Years later, I did the commentary for the DVD with Nick, who's there.
Oh, really?
And we had a good time, actually. It was great fun to do. But we thought it was going to be a very, very funny story within the Tomorrow. Did anyone know the Tomorrow People? Well, it's a rather serious thing, really, where it's about these kids who can time jump or space jump or whatever it is. And this was a comedy story, and we thought it was going to go down really well with the fans. And we were hoping we'd come back for another story at some point. And it went out on the telly, and the children hated it. Because we were making fun of the whole idea of it. So anyway, so it didn't lead to my big break. Eventually, anyway, I got a big break with All Creatures, Great and Small. And we had vet advisors who would actually produce animals for us to cure. So, they in the script would say this dog had an abscess or something, and then the vet would turn up and say, "Oh, I found a dog with an abscess, so you can squeeze it on camera and treat it." And so we found ourselves doing really hands-on stuff. And so I've got a foal about to be born. You can help deliver it. So you got your. There was no dignity was spared. with,
You'd worked with John Nathan Turner.
oh, yes.
In that time.
In that series, yes, that's right.
And that's where this TNT.
JNT, yeah, JNT.
JNT, and then obviously, when he's taken over the show, you got the call.
Yeah, I mean, he was on All Creatures for about maybe one season, and then he left to become the producer of Doctor Who. And we got on very well when we were doing the series, All Creatures, and I didn't think any more of it really. We had a goodbye party for him, and he went off to be the producer. We finished 3 series of All Creatures, which at that time was going to be it. We were going to finish forever. And I was just sitting at home one evening, and he just rang me up out of the blue and said, "Hi," and I said, "Hi," and he said, "How do you feel about being the next Doctor?" And I was very silent on the end of the phone. I thought I had no idea what he was talking about.
Another vet, probably, yeah.
Yeah, another vet, yeah, possibly. Anyway, but then Tom Baker was obviously leaving, I discovered, and he took me out for lunch, got me drunk, and I said yes. I was going to ask lots of questions because it was a difficult job to do. Tom had done it for 7 years, and he'd become completely identified with that character, and I didn't want that to happen to me, so I was going to ask him all sorts of probing questions when he took me for lunch. Instead, I said yes over the sticky toffee pudding. I'd always written songs. I mean, the first song I never used to play them to anyone. I did send them to sort of A&R men at record companies, and one was very interested, but they offered me this diabolical songwriting contract where I had to write 8 songs a year that were acceptable to them, which basically means you had no power at all. You could write 50 songs and they'll go, "Nope, don't have to pay you. You haven't produced one that we like yet." So I said no to that. And then Dave Clark of the Dave Clark 5 was actually at our drama schools, but he was paying for lessons because he wanted to be an actor. And so he just joined our year, although he was paying great fees to do so. And he just heard me singing this song in a little youth club down the road one evening, and he said, "I want to record it." So that was Officer McCurk. And I used to do this song, Officer McCurk, at conventions, funnily enough. Well, the first 2 Doctors, particularly William Hartnell and Patrick Troughton, and there was something about Patrick Troughton's vulnerability which I wanted to bring back into the show. I hadn't really seen much of John Pertwee or Tom Baker, not because I didn't like them, simply because I was out, at drama school and working and things like that. So, but I felt that after Patrick, John lost a bit of the vulnerability. He was very much a sort of full-on macho, sort of James Bond figure, yeah. So I thought that the program worked better when the Doctor was this slightly impetuous Time Lord that didn't always get things right, and that's when the companions used to come in and sort of sort the Doctor out. And I still think that's the best way those things work.
And you did inherit some companions. You had more than one companion. You
I know.
TARDIS,
yes, I had 3 companions. I don't quite know why that was. I think John wanted to somehow protect me. I don't know, but all I know is that he said to me, "Well, you're a younger Doctor, so you can't put your arms around the girls at all, but you can put your arm around Adric." I thought, what? Besides, it wasn't as much fun cuddling Adric. But he just had a different take on it. So, normally the director is up in what they call the gallery.
The gallery.
And they couldn't get Graham to go up in the gallery. He was always on the floor. He was always on the set. So and he would just move the camera. And so there were times when I thought, is this going to work? And then he swept us all up in this idea that this was just a different way of doing things. I'm sure he wasn't the first director to do that on television, but he was the first director of Doctor Who that did it like that. And I think it changed the way that the show was made. Time Flight, which actually was quite a good script, but we ran out of budget completely. So we were literally doing it inside Studio 8 with little models of Concorde, which we had to pretend was actually Concorde, a good way away. But the cast was such brilliant fun, and we just had the greatest time making it. I think I had more fun making Time Flight than any other program, but it was by far, far short of the best story we ever did. But largely, if you think you're doing something good, I have to like what I'm doing, really. So I don't think even in Time Flight there was a time where I was sitting there going, "Oh, this is terrible," or "This is not doing this justice." You have to kind of deal with. And I'm a great believer in sometimes good things coming out of compromise. It didn't happen in Time Flight, but. But sometimes compromise can be, the germ that sort of, yeah. Five Doctors. It was great to be a part of. I think that Nathan Turner made a mistake in thinking there would be problems, because too many egos on the set. He felt so he made this decision to keep us apart for a lot of the program, and I was fairly young, and I was quite happy to defer to people like John Pertwee, who thought he was the greatest doctor ever. No, and that's fine because he was very protective of the program. Patrick was far more, I suppose, like me. It was a job that he did. They didn't ever manage to persuade Tom to do it, which was a shame. I don't know why he didn't do it, because I think he was just too close to it. He was still trying to escape from, distance himself from the program. But we each had our own strand, and then it was just a shame. I think it would be much nicer if we were together for longer, that's all. Because I didn't have a problem, and there was no bad blood between Patrick and John, as it turned out. And I think we had an actor playing the William Hartnell Doctor, and everyone got on very well, actually. But it was still an enormous fun to do. I'm acting with these former doctors, but as John said to me, "You are the Doctor." I am the dish of the day, and may I interest you in parts of my body? I can't remember the exact line, sadly, but I told this story yesterday, but if anyone wasn't there, I'll repeat it. I got cast as this Amiglian Major Cow, the dish of the day, and I had no idea how to do the part, really, how to play the part, what voice to give this character. But in that story of Hitchhikers, there was okay, there I am, yeah. That's obviously, I had the head on by the time we filmed it, but it was sort of 6 hours in makeup and 3 minutes on the set. Anyway, Dave Prowse was in it, and he was playing the sort of heavy for the Hot Black Desiato. And he would tell me the stories. Oh yeah, that's me, look at that. And he would tell me wonderful stories about, not being cast in various things or them not using his voice. So he told me how he wasn't quite cast in Superman, and then he told me about how he thought he was the voice of Darth Vader, but when he went along, it turned out he wasn't. I wasn't, Peter. I thought I was going to be the voice of Darth Vader, and when I went there, I wasn't. And as I was talking to him, I suddenly thought, that's a perfect voice for the dish of the day. So I just impersonated him as best I could, and he never noticed what I was doing. He never noticed it. I was a big fan of Toast. because it was about a dodgy actor. And I'd had similar experiences, the experiences he had in the voiceover, when he was doing the voiceovers. I've had experiences just like that. Honestly, they are pains in the bottoms, voiceover people. So I was very thrilled when he said, would you like to come along and just play this strange version of yourself? And as Janet said, well, you are a strange version of yourself anyway. I loved it, yeah. I wish it had gone on, but... I think working with Robert Hardy was one of the most formative experiences of my acting life, really, because I was a newcomer. My mother was in love with him for a start. That's all she talked about when she heard I was doing All Creatures. Oh, Robert Hardy, what's he like? But he was an extraordinary actor. He was a stage actor, really, at his best. And he never had the ability to hone down a performance to a kind of a final performance. So, and he knew this was a problem, and he hated it about himself. He said, I just can't hone it down. I can't do all the things I've worked out over rehearsals. So when he did a take on the set, you never knew how he was going to play it. So sometimes he'd shout at me, and then sometimes he'd whisper venomously at me. And I had to react off him all the time. And I had no idea what he'd do. Literally, they'd say, okay, can we just do another take? We'd do it. And he would do it completely differently. And I was desperately trying to cling on to some semblance of what I had intended to do, but always having to react. So it taught me how to play off someone when you did not know what was coming at you. And that was incredibly exciting, and he liked the fact that I managed to do it. So it was really because of him. He said, I think you should have I was only meant to be in 4 of the first series of that story, because I was meant to be away at veterinary college for most of it. But he said, I really like the way the two brothers work. I want to have him in more episodes. So I was in virtually every episode until we finished certainly the first 3 series.
This is Mick Wingert, and you're watching Fandom Spotlight. Be sure to like and subscribe, and don't forget to have fun
and follow your fandom.